This video is the first in training course aimed at road and rail infrastructure managers or owners to evaluate the impact of extreme natural hazard events on their transport networks. This training course describes reliable stress tests for critical European transport, which were developed as part of the InfraRisk project. These stress tests can be used to evaluate the potential impacts of low probability natural hazard events on road and rail networks, providing important insights that can facilitate the decision-making process with regard to the protection of these assets. Natural hazards, such as earthquakes, landslides, and floods, are regularly occurring destructive phenomena with potentially devastating consequences. In 2014, for example, there were 324 natural disasters reported globally, resulting in 141 million people being affected, which included almost 8,000 fatalities, as well as economic damage that was valued at $99.2 billion. Europe was the third most affected continent after Asia and the Americas. The European single market is highly dependent on transport infrastructure for the movement of people and goods. The Trans-European Transport Networks, or TEN-T, provide core network corridors in Europe, linking east to west and north to south, enabling the effective movement of goods, persons and services, and supporting economic competitiveness. Extreme natural hazard events have the potential to cause significant disruption to the TEN-T road and rail networks, which can have a devastating impact on local, national, and international societies. This raises the question of how to protect existing road and rail networks and how to future-proof new transport infrastructure against these extreme natural hazard events.
In order to tackle the problem, in the InfraRisk project we brought together a multidisciplinary team of professionals from across Europe, consisting of engineers, computer scientists, risk analysts, mathematicians, network modelers and hazard experts. Working collaboratively, we were able to quantify the risks to our road and rail infrastructure networks and aid decision making in protecting our existing and future-proofing our new road and rail infrastructure against the impacts of extreme natural hazard events. The objective of the InfraRisk project is to develop reliable stress tests to establish the resilience of critical European road and rail infrastructure to rare but extreme natural hazard events. The stress test enables us to quantify the probability of failure of our infrastructure more accurately for a given event. This provides a useful insight into the likely impacts to a transport network following a natural disaster. To achieve this, we've developed an integrated approach to risk assessment of distributed transport networks that considers cascading effects and complex interdependencies of the networks. The outputs of InfraRisk consist of a harmonised multi-risk assessment framework, incorporating a stress test procedure that can be applied to a distributed network and can aid decision-making in the long term with regards to the protection of existing and the design of future infrastructure. Implementation of the framework in practice is facilitated through the use of an InfraRisk decision support tool. This online tool can be used by infrastructure managers or other interested stakeholders to apply the stress test procedure. Equally, the framework is tested through the simulation of case studies.
Within this framework, the likely occurrence of natural hazard events is determined. The natural hazards that have been considered in the InfraRisk project include earthquakes, floods, and landslides, as well as their cascading effects, such as earthquake-triggered landslides. The network elements considered in the InfraRisk project include bridges, tunnels, and embankments, as well as road and rail sections. The vulnerability of the infrastructure is expressed in terms of fragility functions, which provides the probability of physical damage as a function of a measure of the hazard intensity. For transport networks, the risk due to extreme natural hazard events is analysed according to the spatial and temporal effects of distributed transport networks and the associated natural hazard occurrences. Methods such as wavelet analysis and data mining have been used to model the spatially and temporally varying cycles of natural hazards. For example, seismic ground motions, precipitation, or landslides. In order for infrastructure managers and national agencies to plan mitigation strategies and policy, it is vital to have an understanding of the consequences of damage and disruption to various parts of the network. For analysing the impacts on spatially distributed and temporally varying transport infrastructure, a network analysis by way of a traffic simulation has been performed to evaluate the consequences of the natural hazard event. To demonstrate the application of the methodologies developed in the InfraRisk project, stress tests have been performed for 2 case study networks. In the first case study, stress tests were performed on a road network in the vicinity of Bologna city in northern Italy to evaluate the risk to the network due to extreme earthquake hazard scenarios and cascading earthquake-triggered landslide effects. This road network is located along the Scandinavian-Mediterranean TEN-T corridor. For the second case study, stress tests were performed for a rail network in Croatia due to extreme flood scenarios. To enable infrastructure managers and owners to perform their own stress tests on transport networks, the InfraRisk project has developed an online decision support tool that can be used to quantify the risk to road and rail transport networks due to extreme natural hazard events. The project has also developed an online database for critical infrastructure elements. This enables infrastructure managers to compile local, national or cross-border databases in a unified framework for any geographical location of interest. Equally, historical events are often used in predicting the probability of a hazard occurring and the consequences. Users can contribute to the database by uploading their own data and can access and view the knowledge base on a map, on a smartphone or tablet, through a GUI application. This training course consists of 4 videos that will provide information to infrastructure managers and owners on how to perform reliable stress tests for critical European transport infrastructure networks. In this video, we have introduced the InfraRisk project and the methodologies and online tools that have been developed. In video 2, the stress testing procedure and overarching risk assessment methodology is explained. Video 3 will demonstrate a case study of an Italian road network using the online InfraRisk decision support tool. Finally, video 4 will describe 2 alternative stress testing approaches for a case study of a Croatian rail network. The project website contains a complete overview of the project, the consortium, dissemination material, publicly available reports, and a catalogue of media-related material.